Well, good afternoon. This is always especially cool for me because I get to talk to my home country, Canada. Eh? Welcome, Kellyanne.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating in our Leaders Who Care series. And we can show people that you are one of the leaders who care, which is why you're here. So, no, I'm thrilled to have you. I'm thrilled to be connected to Squamish because I love the name. We were talking about the name at one of our Fifth Element team calls, and everybody was like so excited and confused and happy about the name Squamish. Some thought that's where Sasquatch came from, or all that stuff. But welcome. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And if we could just start by giving a little bit about, kind of formally introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit. Don't tell us the whole story yet, because then we'll have nothing to talk about left. So
okay,
just a little bit about you, and then we'll chat.
Sure. So my name's Kellyanne Woods. I grew up in Quebec and found my way to BC. I've worked for many years in the beverage space. As a sommelier and a mixologist, and then owned an award-winning craft gin distillery, and then find myself now in the cannabis beverage space with an eye on the psychedelic beverage space. So drinks have always been my thing. I've always been very interested in health and wellness and plants and herbs. So I'm finishing up a vitalism herbalism course. It's been wonderful to sort of steep myself, no pun intended, in herbs. And I'm an actress by trade. That's how I kind of came into the beverage world, was needing to find a job to pay the bills.
Yeah, like acting.
Sometimes,
Oh yeah. Well, I have two boys that started in acting. That's how I ended up in LA, and one of them is still doing movies and stuff, and
great.
And the other one's in music. I'm still waiting to get discovered. I tell them, but
I'm sure they'll give you a cameo at some point if they have some power to do that.
That would be nice, right? So, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a mom of a 4-year-old boy, and that's pretty incredible. I think the pandemic's been really interesting because I've been reminded of all the things that I really enjoy. So I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher. So I've started practicing my Kundalini yoga practice a little bit more. And I like to cook, I like to ferment, I like to can, I like to knit, I like to be outside. God, I'm one of those people that likes to do a lot of things. So I just, I feel like I have my hobbies and my professional life all kind of weave into one sometimes. So yeah, and I live in this beautiful, amazing part of the world between Vancouver and Whistler. I feel really blessed to live on these beautiful lands here. So.
No, it's gorgeous. We were talking about Squamish, and then someone mentioned Victoria, and I said that's a pretty place too. That is an amazing place, and you kind of took some of the thunder of my next question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, because your bio and you have told me, and one of the things I loved when I first met you is you do bring a little bit of energy to the table, which is cool.
Yeah.
Being sarcastic, but and it's almost easier to ask you, what don't you do? Or what haven't you done?
It's true. Like my grandmother, I'm a dual citizen, and my grandmother's from Urbana, Illinois, and she said many really wise things, but two of the things she said that really stuck with me from being a really young girl is she liked her coffee black and often. So, and she also, she always talked about how she resented sleep. And this woman was unbelievably prolific. She was tireless. She taught the organ for a synagogue for 25 years, and she became honorarily Jewish, and she's just incredible. So, you know, like it's part of my bio, but I come from a long line of doers, you know, and also a deep spiritual background. Like, you know, that I'm a daughter of the early witches, which is, my aunt traced our family tree back, and it turns out that, you know, I'm a descendant of, like, I'm a legit witch. And then also, I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. My family came off the Mayflower. And so there's this real pioneering spirit. And this year, when I came to understand those things, so much of who I am made sense to me. You know, I don't, moss doesn't grow under my feet very quickly. So I do bring energy to the table for sure.
Well, you know, Ariana Huffington would probably say we both don't get enough sleep, because she does consulting just on needing sleep, and I certainly get it. I've never been able to get more than 6 hours, like, max of sleep ever.
Oh,
And
wow.
but I think if you really love what you do and you're energized, it seems like you don't get burnt out, obviously, than if you're just in a job.
Yeah, I know, you know, and I think that's a really interesting observation, is like when what you do fuels you and you feel inspired by what you do. Like, I know when, like, you know, around like the holidays, or when you go on a trip or something, you're like, you're just sleeping with your eyes wide open, partly because you're trying to not miss your plane during non-COVID times, but also just you're full of invigoration. I do, one of my hacks is I don't let my team schedule anything before noon for me, so that if my body says sleep, I sleep. I am definitely at my maximum, like my maximum potency at 9 hours of sleep. 9 hours of sleep is like, that's my jam. I try to never get less than 7. And, you know, having a small child and operating a business, like it's not always easy to do, but I certainly try. So.
Well, the new Wonder Woman movie's out,
Yes.
and actually a Jewish gal playing it. Believe it or
Love it.
not.
Is it the same woman from before?
I don't know. I don't think so, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But that's out. You know, it is so interesting, because, you know, I talked to you in reading your bio. You were raised on a hippie hobby wooded farm, and in La Belle Province, where I'm from.
In la province,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know. Vous parlez français ou non?
Oui, je parle français, ouais.
Ok, on va faire l'entrevue en français, comme ça.
L'entrevue complète, on va parler en français.
Pour moi, c'est probablement c'est pas probablement possible, parce
Ouais.
que c'est difficile, et j'ai oublié assez de mon vocabulaire, mais
La même chose pour moi. On peut arrêter, chercher des mots dans le dictionnaire.
OK. Chaque semaine pour 1 heure, on va pratiquer.
The rendezvous. I remember when I was little, we were in the small town I grew up in, and my mom was with me and my sister, and I was talking to a woman. I spoke French, and she turned to my mom and she started speaking French, because I went to French school when I was 5, so I was like perfectly bilingual. Of course, living in BC for as long as I have, I've lost it. Yeah, I grew up in Wakefield, Quebec, outside of Ottawa, and in the Gatineau Hills, and I wouldn't call it, like, it's difficult to call it, like, I always feel a little bit badly when I say I grew up on a farm, because people that raise cattle or raise horses are going to be like, chickens, pigs, goats, and turkeys are not a farm. That's not a farm. So I would say, you know, we were definitely, my parents were hippies, definite back to landers. You know, we found a beautiful piece of land and built our log house from scratch, and, you know, heated with a wood stove. And so cutting firewood, it was really real, but, you know, grew up skating on a beaver pond, and yeah, pretty magical, you know, connected to the land. It's pretty amazing.
yeah, I remember those outside skating. I remember skating down Rideau Canal in Ottawa the whole way.
Yes.
It was so fantastic. People need to do that.
Oh, everyone is the best.
With all of that, from the farm, you've had education in theater, acting in Vancouver. You've had, you know, the family distillery. You've had witches. You've had a revolution. And you're a proud mom, and that's the most cherished thing of all, in my opinion. And it goes fast, considering I have older kids than you do, but it goes fast. But, you know, I'm always interested in the famous why, but I ask it a little bit different way. You know, why do you do what you do?
I think that drinks for me are a culmination of all the things that I love and do. You know, I think that to imbibe and to experience something in your body is a powerful thing. I think to share that experience with other people is a powerful thing. You know, in wine training, we learned a lot about. I saw this wonderful thing with Jancis Robinson once, when she went to Georgia, the country, not the state, but she went to Georgia, and there was, I guess there are these Toastmasters in Georgia that they stand, and the best Toastmasters give these toasts. They're like an hour long, and people just stand there with their glass. But it's all about the reverence for the wine, and the reverence for the connection, and so that has always really stayed with me. But the ability to alter states of consciousness, to make something beautiful for people to enjoy, to work with plants and nature and history and culture, and bring all of that together. I find it's become one of the best ways that I can fully actualize who I am in the shortest answer. And then with all the background training and in performance, it's put me in a position where I can communicate effectively about those things. So sort of there is, of course, greater whys, but I think that's the most simplistic why.
Yeah, I think it's a great why. In fact, my sons with the acting have said, even if they didn't continue with it, it taught them a ton about how to work with people and whatnot. Playing sports taught them different other things. So in some ways, you know, being in that position, but also not just being in it, but actually learning from it to take it to something else is super valuable. And, you know, they say that next to food and air, the thing that fulfills people's hearts and souls more than anything is belonging. And you're kind of talking about it, because you're talking about nature. You're talking about, you know, having a different energy about you, you know, belonging in a more advanced way or whatever. And talk to me a little bit about how all that led to State B.
Yeah, I just got goosebumps actually when you said that, because yeah, I think that's the human connection and longing to belong. That's sort of a major essence to who we are. Is we desire connection. We desire to be part of something, and something, when we gather in groups, is something greater than ourselves. You know, so State B is really the natural progression of the work I've done up until this point. But it was also somewhat, for lack of a better word, channeled, you know, like it just kind of came to me. So when I decided to sell the distillery and move from the gin business, I started to think a lot about what I wanted to do after, you know, and cannabis has always, you know, growing up in Quebec, they talk about the Gatineau green and the Gatineau gold, and the Gatineau gold is maple syrup, and the Gatineau green is cannabis. You know, just it was part of my existence through my life. You know, my dad grew weed in the back 40, and just like, oh yeah, it was like part of the makeup of who I was. You know,
that's why you slept so well.
Absolutely. The cannabinoids have always been activated, you know. Yeah, so it's always been a part of, so I just, you know, as cannabis is becoming more understood and more focused upon and appreciated, revered, and as the decriminalization and the legalization is happening, you know, worldwide as time goes on, it was very intriguing for me to look at that, but in the beverage space. Because, you know, especially, you know, in the times we're living in, lung health has become increasingly important, longevity, wellness, you know, but still we live in this space where I know we're both having a cup of tea, you know. Yep. We drink things, you know, how much water are you taking in, you know, like whether it's alcohol or non-alcohol, we drink, and drinks are, you know, an expression of my work. And so it just became very obvious to me that would be the evolution of my work at this point with State B. So I was lucky enough to be a part of a women's cannabis business accelerator that completed in January. And it basically took everything that I knew about beverage and put me through, what I like to call a mini MBA. So I understood, I went from sort of running a small business to understanding business on a much bigger scale. And then and went to that. And basically I used to park at the train station in Vancouver at 5 a.m., hop on the train, take the train to Portland. And, I was scrappy, right? So there, I'd take the train at 5 a.m., stay, and I'd stay at this great little hotel, but it was like a dormitory hotel. So I was in a room full of tons of people. Strange to think about that now. But so needed to make it happen, knew I needed to be a part of this and knew I needed to make it happen. And so I think during all those train trips and all those drives and all those sleeps in the dormitory, the information came to me, and it was all about, this isn't just about cannabis, and it's not even just about altering your state of consciousness, but it's also using plants and flower essences and the messaging that we have a choice. We have a choice in the way we want to be walking in the world, and those choices are bigger than coffee, no coffee, alcohol, no alcohol, sleep deprived, that we actually have a choice between state A, which is kind of crunchy, and state B, and not only through having a drink and changing your state of consciousness, but understanding that we have options. We can shift our consciousness,
Yeah, that's awesome. My two younger boys, the hockey players, actors, music, are switched to vegan, and I'm not vegan, but I've learned so much about plant-based food and and everything that, growing up, having, meat for dinner and all the time and all that stuff. But even then I knew, playing hockey, that eating that much meat made me feel slower, even to play hockey, even as a young kid, not analyzing the science of it, but just how I felt, and the environment and everything it impacts. So I mean, that's pretty spectacular. With respect to, you talked about grandparents or ancestry and whatnot. My grandparents would always say, with their Kiev accent, they would say, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing, and it wasn't a slogan, it wasn't branding, it was real authentic, real, because of everything they'd gone through, and they know that was the most important thing. So considering, technology is changing fast. You got COVID, you got Mother Nature's really pissed off right now. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Do you see there is an awakening, both personal life and business wise, among people as to what's most important, and, as you say, to look at these different options available to us?
Oh, it's incredible. What an incredible time to be alive, many people have prophesized about this time. There have been different times in my life where I've been on different spiritual paths, but I had the pleasure of bringing a West African shaman to Vancouver, many 15 years ago or so now. But I remember walking into this building, and there were all of these indigenous community members, leaders of different communities that knew this man was coming, and he's a very, very well-known person. And I was there standing between these two totem poles, and this indigenous woman said, I'll just say, it was Malidoma, welcome to our country, welcome to our land. The prophecies are coming true of the reds, the whites, the blacks, and the yellows coming together again. And I was just standing there going, how am I here? But you hear a lot about plant consciousness, and you hear a lot about, the trees are here to help us and support us, and you hear about the green world and the green kingdom. But then you also start to look at, the different, like the Kali Yuga, and the awakening of the Aquarian age. And even people in business nowadays, they're like, oh, well, we're in the Aquarian age. I mean, as a Kundalini yoga teacher, I've been tuned into the Aquarian age for a long time, but you actually have people starting to understand it like it's just, it's just what is. No big deal. People are having these kinds of conversations. And I think the essence of that is that we're, there's the quote, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and I think that, as people start to bring their whole selves into business and into their personal lives. And whatever your creed is, or whatever your belief system is, if we can start to bring our whole selves to things, we are multifaceted, multidimensional people. And I think it goes into authenticity. You know, people always, you know, talk about, you know, even businesses go, well, they really, you know, the statistics say we should be more authentic. You know, it's like, well, duh, you know, you can't fake authenticity. You are authentic, you know, you just, and so I find that there's this real shift happening where slowly but surely people are somehow allowing their whole authentic selves to come to the table. Now, there's like being appropriate, you know, like there's a business practice, and there's what's, you know, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But I think we're finding our way on how to be whole people coming to the table.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. You know, my mom, she probably stole all the quotes that she told us from somewhere, but she did say, you know, if you tell everybody the truth, you don't have to worry about what you told everybody. So it actually is, and I do a lot in leadership. It is easier to be authentic than not. It takes more muscles to frown than smile, if you will.
Yes.
And you know, it's and vulnerability is now a strength in leadership, finally, than not. And that's where women play a big lead role. And men are finally given the option to even cry and eat quiche and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, and eat quiche.
And eat quiche, like God forbid. And but that is related, I believe, to what you're saying about being your whole self. And for a leader, whether it's an entrepreneurial leader like yourself or a big corp or whatever it is, it's so much easier to be that way rather than to have to pretend you know everything and you know you don't. So I totally agree. You know, with respect to that, then I'd like to get your opinion on what role do you see business leaders, if you will, business leaders who care, playing in ensuring that their talented employees, their well-being of their talented employees is taken care of. And there's three well-beings I usually look at. There's financial, there's physical, and mental, which includes spiritual. And again, to your point, people nowadays are looking for that for the most part before they decide to join a company or leaders. They don't want to give up money, but also they don't want just money. They want the whole gambit. And it's not like asking too much anymore. Whereas before, you either went to a nonprofit and made crappy money to do good, and you went to a company to make money. It's all together now. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think I think that it's all data driven, really. Like I read the Harvard Business Review, you know, daily almost. And, you know, if you look at the studies being done, if you look at the data that's coming out, I mean, if you look at people as whole individuals, where it's financial, mental, spiritual, and physical, you are a more productive employee, and you are a smarter employee. You're a more passionate employee. You're a more courageous employee if your whole, you know, if your whole personal pie is in a well place, you know. So you know, because we are a young company and because we're a startup, we have a lot of opportunity right now that, you know, as I work with this core team that I'm developing, what we're doing is we're trying to create practices and a company culture that that we can maintain and sustain as we grow. So when we do our weekly check-in, you know, we do a weekly check-in every Monday at the same time, where we talk about, you know, our goals and the first quarter, and, you know, what the deliverables are, but we also talk about how, like, where we're at, you know. And it's, you know, I think there's a fine line, you know. It's always like, you don't want to go to the drama side of things. You don't want to go ran away, like, you know, like, but like, what's up for you? You know, what's up for you, and what do you feel comfortable about putting on the table, and how are you really, you know? And so I find that when people show up like that, they're not airing out all their dirty laundry the same way they would with their best friend or their mom or whoever else, but there's a certain vulnerability and honesty. And then I think that as a team, you can work collectively to understand where people are at, rather than what's with that guy, you know, like you know, he's had this, or so on and so forth. So I also think that, like, you know, my director of operations, we went skiing on Wednesday. I was like, you know what, we've both been, you know, we can't go on the weekends because it's crazy up there, but neither of us, we're moms, we're in startup mode, we work. all the time. And I was like, you need to shut your computer and we're going to ski some moguls and some powder. And we did. And it was just, our whole being has shifted since then. So I think as a leader, if you were treating yourself like, how is my personal pie? You know, how are my relationships? How am I showing up? You know, how am I sleeping? How am I eating? If you can pay attention to that, and if you can come from that thriving, holistic place, and you can also recognize that in your team, and then as your team grows, have them in that mindset to affect the people that they're leading. I think that's key. You know, we are whole individuals, and if we are struggling in any of those areas, then those are the things that are going to affect our ability to perform in our workplace as well.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic point, and for any company. But I kudos to you for, like, in a startup. A lot of times I find, you know, you got to raise money, you got to do this, that, and you're working all the time, and you can get lost in it. And entrepreneurs have told me, well, I don't have time to figure out my culture. We just got to do this and this. And I would say, well, you actually are building your culture, no matter what. And it's really important what you're doing, and it's super valuable. Last question on this part. Going into 2021, which I'm hoping we make 2021 the year that we really want to remember versus 2020. But what are you most grateful for?
I think my son. I think my son. I think that I think I might get a little weepy. I wasn't expecting, but I think that I think that being a mother, and I'm not a father, so I don't understand what it's like for dads, but I feel that being a mom has driven me in a different way. I feel like I have more responsibility to my longevity. You know, I have more responsibility to my longevity. I have more responsibility to being an effective leader. You made me cry the first time we met, Mark. I don't cry all the time.
It's all right. I cried commercials even, so don't worry about it.
No, I think that I have more responsibility to my longevity. I have more responsibility to being a better example. I have more responsibility to creating a new world and a better world for him to live in. And I am a better person because I have this little person watching me walk in the world. So I feel like I am grateful to him because I have a certain accountability that I could never get from people around me. I have an accountability to someone that I decided to bring into the world. And for that, I'm grateful because that is what makes me get up in the morning and be the best, do my best possible version of me for that day.
Well, that's pretty beautiful, and that is the best part that makes you one of the leaders who care, for sure. So thank you for.
You know, you're a dad, right? You get it. You know, you get like, you know.
I get it. I was chatting with somebody the other day, and you find that with all the accomplishments you make, the accomplishments your kids make, you're 10 times more excited for. So thank you for being a guest. You're awesome. And I should say you're awesome, hey? And,
well, I think out in BC, we say, you're awesome, hey? We say, it took me a while, but now I know I've lived in BC for a long time to say, hey.
That's a little bit of the English. That's in French, they say, eh? So that's kind of like the same.
Bon, hein? C'est bien, hein?
So, c'était mon plaisir. À la prochaine, bientôt.
Oui, bien sûr, ça me fait plaisir aussi.
Thanks.
You're welcome.